Good people, welcome back. Now we just finished working on the variables, the global and local variables. Let's talk about something on argument list. Now what we're trying to talk about here is the arguments and the keyword argument. So let's say, for instance, when a programmer doesn't know the number of arguments that are needed, right? I hope we remember how arguments come around at this point. We have the parameters, we have the arguments. I hope we remember how that come along in functions. And we've covered this in our previous videos. So for an instance, in this scenario, we're talking about we don't know how many arguments a function requires, right? Let's say, for instance, we don't know how many. Remember, initially we used to define arguments and parameters of our functions, right? Now let's imagine in this scenario that we don't know how many. Basically, we do not know the number, right? Let's say we know the number. If we don't know the number, that's where the argument keyword comes in. Arguments. So this comes in when so we use this when we don't know the number of arguments. Yeah, how that makes sense? When we don't know the number of arguments to be passed in a function, we use the keyword args, basically for arguments. As we can see, it's a short form of arguments. So we use the arguments parameter. Hope this makes sense. Like, for example, if we didn't know the number of arguments we'd want in this function, we'd use the star args, basically arguments, as our parameter. How that makes sense? As I told you, I hope we remember how the parameter and arguments came along, and that's what we just going on with the discussion right here. So we use the arguments parameter, this basically to collect the optional positions, the optional position parameters into how that makes sense of where and when we use the star args parameter. Let's say, for example, let's do an example for us to get to know what we're trying to talk about here. Let's say we have a function to print sandwich, right? For the parameters we're going to pass bread, meat, right? Basically what is required in making a sandwich. Now let's pass the arguments parameter here so that we're able to add more arguments to our function when we call it. Let's see how that happens. We're going to start. So we're going to start args. Now that's our arguments parameter being used. Then let's say we print this, formatting the output. Then we can say we want to get the meat. We can pass this then the open and closing, no? Yes. Let's emit our first parameter. Emit on bread. Right? We've just got the parameters we have right now. And we can end this. Hope that makes sense. And then let's check the length of the arguments we have, right? So we're going to say if the length of arguments, right? So we're going to pass the arguments, length of arguments. Now this is where we're going to check our conditional statement comes in. It's greater than 0. Yeah, so we're checking this. What happens? You have to identify, so we print this. Print. Basically we're going to, if it's less than 0, it's less than 0, right? It ends with a space. Then what if it has extra arguments, right? Like it has more than argument has been used, it has extra arguments. Remember, this is, we are using the arguments parameter, but it's used when we want to pass more arguments. So what happens if we have more arguments, more than 1, more than 0, right? So what happens is go to the print. In this place we're going to print extra, basically the extras we have, extra arguments we have, then we end. Yeah, does that make sense? Then we print I hope that makes sense up to that point, how we're going to use the extra arguments. Now let's call our function and then pass arguments more than, basically more than 2, right? So we'll say print sandwich. That's these are function, we're calling our function. So when we call our function is called with the open and closing bracket. That's our function being called. Now let's pass our arguments here. So in our first stage we're going to pass that's our first. Then we're going to pass key. Then our last we're going to pass mail, right? So this is our first sample. We can print this and then let's see the output. I'm going to use function 16. So no function 16.py. Let's print what we have. And there's an error somewhere. Let's see. For extra arguments, supposed to have anything here, and this. Okay, so first we have our function, we have print, we have bread, meat, and arguments there. When we indent this, that's okay. So if length of arguments is greater than 0, print for extra arguments. For extra arguments, where basically for extra in that should have been the error. Yeah, solve the error. So let's try and run this, and then we see what we have. So we're going to use function 16. Yeah. So remember, we have said the arguments we're passing here are turkey, soda, and mayo. These are the arguments we're passing in our function. So we've called the function here. Then we're passing three arguments, right? So the length of arguments is greater than 0, right? We have 1, 2, 3 arguments. That's why we have turkey, on soda, and on with mayo. Now let's try an instance where we have, let's call our function get sandwich, and then let's pass more arguments, right? Let's try with half. Yeah, let's try with mustard. Let's try with tomato. Come on. Okay, we can have as many as we want, but let's stop at that for now, and let's see what we have. So we're going to say we have the last last three. Had we had 4, we'd have them printed here. So basically we're going to say we have ham on wheat, right? With, then we have the rest here. I hope that makes sense. The same way we had turkey on sourdough with mayo. So basically we have the last 3 printed there. Now that's how we have the arguments being passed, right? Remember here we just have 3 parameters, but here we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 arguments. So we have said we use the arguments when we don't know the number of arguments a function requires. Now that's a good example of how we've been able to use the arguments keyword to collect more arguments that we'd want to have, right? We know the exact number. So if a function has 20, we might not want to list 20 parameters. We just use the argument. Now let's talk about another keyword argument, right? Yeah, these are so we have just talked about argument. Then let's talk about the keyword arguments. So basically, let me just say short form of keyword arguments, right? So basically is when we did say args was a short form of arguments, right? So what this does is it creates a dictionary containing extra arguments not defined. I hope this makes sense. The function definition. Yeah, so what this does is it creates a dictionary, right? I hope this is the keyword in that. When you say keyword arguments, remember we have arguments, and as we know, dictionaries have a key and key and the value definition, or the how a functional is created, is that we should have the key and the value. So basically, when you want to have a dictionary that has extra arguments, we use the keyword arguments in a function, right? And another thing we have to know here is that the keys, right? Basically, the keyword argument, the keys, dictionary, and the parameter names. How does this make sense? Is that the keys of the dictionary are the parameter names specified in the function code. Basically, we're going to do an example, and then we're going to do an example, then we see how this comes along, right? So let's use this just as an example. Okay, we might have to have a few changes, but I've just copied the function we had on talking about arguments. So basically, let's have a few. What we're going to change here is that we have said we want to use the keyword argument, so I'm just going to add the K and the W to have the keyword argument, right? So then we're going to have meat on bread, that's okay. Then we're going to say let's just have that we're having a new. Here we're going to use for. So just use a for loop. Basically, we're going to have this in category, and that we're going to have keyword arguments, right? We're going to pass the items here. We're going to say we're going to print. We're going to format the output. Then we say we want to get the category. Full colon. Then we pass the extra arguments we have. Then let's have a print here. Yeah, so let's call our function. Our function is called print sum. We're going to do this in we're going to print this in our interpreter, and then we see what happens. So we have tracking. The soda. Source being mail. Now let's try this in our. Remember what we talked about here is the keyword argument, right? So we did say the keys of the dictionary are the parameter. So we have the key, the value. So the key here as the parameter, right? Now let's try and run this, and then we see the output. Function 17. Function. Yeah. So just as we had initially, supposed to have. Okay. So let's do function 17. Unexpected keyword argument source. Let's try and debug this. Now we're supposed to have source being mail. Now let's debug our code. We have the print sandwich here. We have the parameters, meat, bread, and the must have been it's my error. I'm supposed to have had 2 stars right here, not 1. 2 stars, and then the keyword arguments. Otherwise, our code was okay. This was just the error we were having. So this is what I expected to see, because we have a source and the value. So basically, we have the key and the value, and we said in our description that the keys of the parameter, the keys of the dictionary. These are dictionary, right? Key and the value. I hope you remember this is how our dictionary is created. We have the key and the value. So the keys of the dictionary are the parameters, right? I hope that makes sense. And we've seen in our example. Let's do an example whereby we have more than one. We have more than one key. We have more than one dictionary. So here, basically, the keyword arguments would come in, and we want to pass the dictionary. So we print sandwich. Then we pass. We will pass. Let's say wait for our parameter 1 and 2, right? And then let's now have the keyword arguments. So we'll say source 1, this being the key. Let me say it's equals to value. Here we'll have mustard, right? Then let's say we want to pass another. Basically, here we're passing dictionaries, right? And we don't know the exact. Let's say we don't know the exact number of dictionaries we want to have. So you'll pass as many as you can. Yeah, and so basically, I bet we can tell how the output here will be. We'll have ham on wheat. Then we'll have source 1, source 2. So we'll have source 1, veg 1, veg 2. Yeah. So basically, does that make sense? Let's try and run this. See? So basically, we'll have ham on wheat. Ham on wheat. We're going to have source 1, key value being the passed on the keyword arguments section. I hope that makes sense. Here we're supposed to have 2 stars. Yeah, not 1 star, but 2 stars. I hope that makes sense, and we've understood how the arguments and basically the args keyword arguments work. Yeah. So basically, here we use 1 star, right? So arguments and we use 1 star. So basically, the arguments and the keyword arguments work. So, if we use, what happens if we use args and args without the? What happens if we use them without the stars, right? How important are the stars in the keyword in the arguments, the keyword arguments? So basically, if you use that, one or both of arguments and the keyword arguments can be used. So I use 1 or both. 1 or both of the keyword arguments. That's and in our writing, in our parameters, when passing parameters, they come last. Yeah, does that make sense? They come last in when writing our, just the way we've done here. The keyword arguments came last, and then we said you can use either one more minute. When used without result, when used. This should be okay. This should be right here. Yeah, so basically this you can use one or both of the star and yeah, then on passing parameter they come last. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that makes sense of our understanding of the arguments and the keyword arguments in a function. Yeah, I hope we have understood. We've done example 1, example 2, basically using the arguments, and on the example 2 using the keyword arguments. I hope that makes sense. In case you have any question, let me know in the comment section. Let me know, and then you can discuss more about it. Thank you for your time. See you in the next one. Bye bye.